holiday weekend. We got a great show for you today. This is a two-part series. We had ex-NFL player Chris Draft come into our office the other day and talk to us all about the Draft Family Foundation and what he's doing to build awareness around lung cancer in Courtland. This two-part series we're kicking off today is really special.
It's a very inspirational show that we had with Chris. We talked with him about the inspiration behind starting the Chris Draft Family Foundation, the unfortunate circumstances of losing his beautiful, smart, talented wife to lung cancer, and his efforts now to change the face of lung cancer.
So he is doing great work. Don't take it from me. Sit back, enjoy part one of Chris Draft's story.
I never had so much love on my side until I met you. And you changed my mind when you showed me that there is a light. There is a light.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to H360 Live. My name is Dave Duplay and I'm joined here in the studio with my friend and colleague from Healthy h360, Miss Courtland Long. Courtland, it's good to see you.
Good to see you too, Dave. How are you?
I'm doing great. Well, we've got an exciting show for everybody today. Chris Draft, an ex-NFL player, is going to be in the studio. Chris has an amazing story. He has built an amazing foundation. Chris unfortunately lost his wife to lung cancer, and he has dedicated his life to building this foundation and bringing awareness and good things to people in the lung cancer community that need it most, and I really admire him for that. And he's just an all-around great guy, great athlete, doing great work, and now has just immersed himself into his family foundation and doing some great things. He's going to be joining us here in a minute, but Courtland, as we always do, we've got some health tips that we want to share with everybody today. And I think these tips are very appropriate for what we're going to be talking to Chris about.
Absolutely. These tips are all about reducing one's risk for developing lung cancer. And so we'll just jump right in. The first tip should be really obvious, and it is don't smoke. Now, I know in our show today we're going to be trying to debunk the misconception that lung cancer is a smoker's disease, but we should mention, you just shouldn't smoke. Smoking is about 80% is the leading cause of lung cancer, responsible for about 80 to 90% of lung cancers. It's never too late to quit smoking, and if you are a smoker and you've developed lung cancer, quitting can help increase your chances of survival.
You know, Courtland, that's a great tip. And, it's easier said than done, I think, in many cases. But you're so right. And I want to point out a couple of things. One, you say quit smoking, and that's obvious. But secondhand smoke, you have to watch out. And now third-hand smoke, right?
Yeah.
So there's second and third-hand smoke. If you are a smoker, be respectful of others. If you can't quit, the worst thing you could do is smoke in the car and have the windows up and your children in the back. Or, you're smoking and that smoke and some of the nicotine gets on your clothes and you're holding your children. That's third-hand smoke. So you really, really have to be careful about that. So great tip number one there, quit smoking. And there's smoking cessation products out there. If you're really having a challenge, go see your physician, and maybe there's a product that's right, that's on the market that's right for you. So tip number two is to check home for radon. This is something, Courtland, that everybody needs to do. And I believe now to get a home mortgage, I think a radon check is, at least if you have a basement, is required. So radon is an odorless gas. That's a result from the decaying natural uranium in the soil underneath your home. Like I say, if you have a basement, it's really important to get that checked. Even after you purchase the home, right, and you're in there for a while, I think you can go to Home Depot and get a home check, a little canister you'll put down in your basement. Do that often, take a look, see if radon is emitting odorless gas up through the foundation and the rocks and soil from your home. You got to really check that.
That's a great tip, and one I think a lot of people don't really consider when they're thinking about health risks and also what they need to think about when buying a home. And there are ways that you can mitigate the risks of radon gas in your house. Now, tip number three is to eat a variety of fruits and vegetables. Again, this one should be a little bit obvious. Incorporating all these fruits and vegetables into your diet can be super easy, and they're so healthy for you. And studies have shown that it's not necessarily the amount of fruits and vegetables that you eat, but you should be eating a wide variety of different kinds every day. So try to shop the rainbow.
You know, Courtland, that's a great point. You know, I love fruits and veggies, and, you know, I saw Chris beforehand in the studio walking around, and he is in really good shape. So I can't wait to talk to him about the fruits and veggies that he eats, because I'm sure he's all over it and eating a lot of them. So 3 great tips, Courtland. Let's just review real quick for our audience one last time the 3 tips.
Number 1, don't smoke.
Okay, that radon in your basement that maybe it's an odorless gas, you're not going to know unless you test for it. Get that home tested.
And finally, eat all the fruits and vegetables.
Okay, there you go. 3 great tips. So Courtland, as we always do, we sent the interns out into Bryant Park to see exactly what our New Yorkers know about some of these tips, what radon is, how much fruits and vegetables they're eating, and how many of them smoke or don't smoke and know about second and third hand smoke. So it's a great video. You want to watch?
We'd love to.
Okay, guys, please play the video for us.
So what are some ways that someone can get lung cancer?
Well, let's see. I think smoking is the number one way that most people think of getting lung cancer. I think that's probably right. I believe there is probably a genetic component, as there is to most cancers. So people can have a genetic predisposition to various types of cancers, including lung cancer.
Living an unhealthy life in terms of what they're eating or what they're consuming, i.e. processed foods, sugars.
I think smoking is one of them. Even if you don't smoke, when others smoke and you inhale the fumes, it can cause lung cancer.
I work in the construction part of the business, and there are a lot of materials that if you don't protect yourself with respirators and stuff, you could develop a cancer.
Do you think that eating fruits and vegetables can lower your risk of getting lung cancer, and why?
I will like to think yes. I don't know if there's been proven or there's scientifically proved that it does.
I do, and I also believe that it depends on the type of fruits and vegetables and where they are, where they're grown, meaning locally grown.
It doesn't seem to me, like I'm not a doctor, but it doesn't seem like fruits and vegetables really have anything to do with the intake of carcinogens, which is typically what I think of when I think of lung cancer.
I think yes. Eating healthy food always lowers any chance of disease, so yeah.
For people who smoke cigarettes, if they decided to quit today, what long-lasting impact do you think that it would have on their lungs?
If they quit today, I think that will at least lower your chances and extend your lifespan. So I guess if they quit today, that's a good thing.
I think it will be a positive impact. I believe there's a study that says that after somebody quits smoking in about a period of about 9 months, lungs could regenerate.
I think that it would clear their lungs. I personally quit smoking a year ago, and I already feel my lung capacity or my ability to breathe is a lot better.
Well, I've never smoked, but from what I understand, stopping smoking is one of the best ways to prevent all sorts of respiratory problems associated with smoking.
Well, Courtland, what do you think?
Excellent video. As always, our New Yorkers and our interns didn't disappoint. You know, everyone in New York loves to talk about food, so they were really into those fruits and veggies.
Well, you know, look, we're in New York City. I mean, you can get any kind of food you want. I'm glad to see New Yorkers are healthy. And, you know, a lot of them, the smoking, they're non-smokers. So
Yeah.
I think, relatively speaking, New York is a relatively healthy city. I think Mayor Bloomberg had a lot to do with kind of putting a ban on smoking in restaurants and public places. So kudos go out to him for his efforts there. But all the way around, it seems like the people that we talked to were pretty healthy. Radon, I think we, you know, well, I mean, look, we're in New York. We build up, not out,
Yeah.
right, in New York City with a lot of high rise. So not a lot of familiarity with radon, but we're getting there. So, but people do, you know, move out to the burbs, get a home, and that radon check is important.
Yeah, it's important to know about it.
Okay, great job. Our interns did a fantastic job. Our New Yorkers, our friends there, are very opinionated as always, and doing a great job. Well, Courtland, our favorite time of the show. Chris is in the studio with us, and before we get into the Q&A with Chris, I want to go over just a few basic pieces of information about lung cancer, and this is really important. So here we go. Lung cancer, both small cell and non-small cell, is the second most common cancer in both men and women. About 14% of all new cancers are lung cancer. The American Cancer Society estimates that in this year alone there will be over 220,000 new cases of lung cancer diagnosed and about almost 160,000 deaths, unfortunately, from lung cancer. Lung cancer is by far the leading cause of cancer deaths among men and women. About 1 in every 4 cancers are lung cancer, and every year more people die from lung cancer than colon, breast, prostate cancers combined. So this is an important topic to learn about. Lung cancer mainly occurs in older people. About 2 out of 3 people diagnosed with lung cancer are 65 or older, while less than 2% are under the age of 45. The average age of being diagnosed is about 70 years of age. Chris, it's great to see you here in the studio today. You're looking great.
Thank you for having me.
Manhattan looks like it's treating you well. You were over to see your friends at the NFL office today.
Yeah, I have NFL offices here off Park Avenue over by the Waldorf Astoria, so I had a chance to check in and talk to Commissioner Goodell and some of the other guys there and kind of share with them the work that we're doing with cancer and also catch up with them about some of the programs I work with them on with the NFL.
Yeah, you know, they're doing some great work. I love this Play 60 campaign that they have going on. You know, kids these days, they're sitting on the couch and their thumbs are getting a lot of exercise with these Game Boys and game consoles, but, you know, they got to get out and they got to exercise and do the right thing. So that's a fantastic program that they're behind and supporting. I see a lot of that, so kudos to them.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, Chris, we have so many questions for you. We want to hear about your career as a football player, your journey with your late wife, Keisha, Chris Draft Family Foundation, all the great things you guys are doing. So can we start out by having you tell us a little bit about your life and your career as a football player?
You said a little bit about my life and my career as a football player. Well, I guess I'll try to condense it and try to hit some points. I know we get a lot of other questions, so you'll kind of get into it that way too. But I played 12 years in the NFL. Played for 7 teams, from 1998 to 2010. So I played with the Chicago Bears, San Francisco 49ers, Atlanta Falcons, Carolina Panthers, St. Louis Rams, Buffalo Bills, and the Washington Redskins. Wow. So with that said, I moved around quite a bit. I had to play quite a bit to be able to do that, but also got a lot of experience of really getting to know different teams and how they run their teams, but then also got to know how cities are made up. So I had a chance to really experience a lot of cities and experience a lot of different organizations. So as I move forward in the work that we're doing now, I'm able to draw on those experiences really from not just playing football and really everything that goes with that, but really the experience of being in those particular cities and understanding that every place is a little bit different.
Yeah, Chris, I'm from Cleveland, and I guess the cherry on top of the sundae would have been if you would have had a Browns uniform on. But nonetheless, the operative word here is team, right? And you've seen a lot of teams and you've seen a lot of cities. And I'm curious to know, what did you learn in the NFL in terms of teamwork that now you take to the Family Foundation and the work that you're doing?
Great question. I think if to be able to answer that, I'll use lung cancer as the example. But the most important thing in terms of team and really as individuals within that team is to be honest. To be honest about where you stand and honestly about what you want to accomplish. And so within the lung cancer space, there's a smoking stigma. We understand that there is a smoking stigma, that people have only seen that. But to be honest is to ask the question, where did it come from? And once you do that, then you realize that for the last 30, 40 years that there have been commercials about lung cancer and smoking. That's it. So all you've seen is a prevention as it relates to lung cancer. So if we want people to understand something that's different, we first have to understand that they've been educated. So it's not that they just came up and thought of something. It's not that they just woke up in the morning and said, hey, this is what it is. They were educated in that way. And so that means that if we want to make a difference, then it's going to start with education. It's not just some basic awareness, it's about education, and then it's what do we actually need them to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's where football is all the time, is being honest, being honest about who you have. So you do a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, just like any type of business. Understand what your team is, understand what they're able to do, what they're not able to do, and then that's going to drive what your game plan is.
Yeah. And setting realistic goals, I think, is part of that also, right? I mean, education is one, but set realistic goals and milestones along the way to measure, the progress that you're making.
Absolutely, and again, that comes from being honest, so that you're honest with yourself and what you actually can accomplish. You know where that edge is, where you're pushing it versus versus something that's just not really realistic. Now, your goal is to get there, and you have to maintain that. Maintain where the goal is that you want to get to. But in terms of where those goals are, we have to be realistic about what the goals are.
Yeah.
So, Chris, let's talk about asthma for a minute. And I know a lot of people in the U.S., across the world even, are dealing with asthma, and you had it during your playing career.
Still have it.
Still have it. So did this present any obstacles to you, or how did you overcome it?
Did it present the obstacles? That's that is absolutely, it did, absolutely. So while I was playing, I probably was in the hospital about 6 or 7 times from asthma attacks, and then, you just can't avoid certain situations when you're playing, so you're pushing yourself constantly to that edge. So it's not like if I'm having a day where I'm not feeling real well, it's not like I can say, hey coach, I don't think I'm going to feel too good, so why don't I just take this off? So that's what makes it a little bit more difficult. The other thing is that my triggers are smoke and then grass.
Yeah.
So cutting the grass, it can be a little difficult in playing football where you're playing on the grass. And probably the most difficult, difficult thing for me is actually just walking through a city. So people ask me all the time, man, football was so hard, it was dangerous and everything like that. And actually for me, walking through a big city like New York is actually more dangerous.
Oh, wow.
Because there are people outside smoking.
Yeah.
So that for me is actually more dangerous. So I'm constantly dealing with that. So even though I'm done playing, at least with playing, I'm on the field and you don't have to worry about it. But as you walk through cities a little bit more, that could be
Do you have an emergency inhaler
I always
on you?
have it.
Yeah.
Always have it with me.
Good.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk about that all the time, EpiPens and emergency inhalers, and so that's. I'm glad to hear you're practicing what you're preaching.
Well, I've got to.
Yeah.
Got to. One of the largest concentrations of asthma is actually here in New York and in East Harlem, so Puerto Rican community up there. That is one of the largest concentration of asthma cases in the country.
Yeah.
So talking about asthma is very serious up here.
Yeah. So, Chris, I mean, we're all so sorry to hear about you losing your wife, but, and it's kind of out of, I guess, hardship, things come, right? Things eventually settle down, and then things get to start to be built back up, your foundation for one, in my case, this company. Tell us about your late wife. I'm interested to hear about her. I mean, knowing you for a short period of time, I mean, she must have been a very strong woman and inspired you greatly to do what you're doing with your foundation.
Oh, yeah, beautiful woman. So my wife, Keisha Rutledge Draft, was she went to Clemson, graduated from Clemson University with a degree in electrical engineering, and ended up moving up to Charlotte. And when she was there, she started dancing with the Charlotte Hornets. So a lot of people will say, well, she was a dancer, but actually she's an electrical engineer dancer, and then transitioned to do pharmaceutical sales. So then pharmaceutical sales and dance. Because it seems like, you see the ladies out there and you see them doing their work, but they really, that's not a, they're professional, but that's not what's going to pay the bills. So they're paying the bills, electrical engineer and a pharmaceutical sales. But I mean, again, just a tremendous spirit. Every time she walked in the room, people knew it.
Yeah.
She, it wasn't surprising that she did sales, because that, electrical engineering just wasn't enough. It just wasn't enough interaction. It was, it was technical, but it wasn't enough people. And so anybody that knew her, I mean, she really brought a joy to them, made them feel better, made them feel good. And so, really just, there's a zest for life. Was always talking about, the quality of life. Everything was about really grabbing a hold of each day and enjoying it. And so, I was blessed. I was blessed to be around her. I was blessed to get to know her when I was playing with the Carolina Panthers. Get to meet her then, and then was blessed to be able to be with her. So my last year was 2010 in the NFL, and I got released from the Redskins, so I was at home for Thanksgiving and Christmas. And so most people don't realize that if you're playing, you're not going to be home unless your home is where you're playing. But I was home.
Yeah.
And being there at the beginning of December, when my wife, who had been challenging me to do P90X with her and run a 10K and just at the peak of conditioning, had a little shortness of breath. And she went into a primary care doc, and he says, let's take these antibiotics, but let's just get a chest x-ray. Ends up with a mass in her left lung. End up getting a PET scan, biopsy, PET scan, and what do you know? Stage 4 lung cancer. Stage 4 lung cancer. And you find out the most important fact about lung cancer is that anyone can get it.
And she's your fiance at this time?
She was my girlfriend at that time.
Girlfriend
became my fiance later in 2011. So that was December of 2010 when we found out.
Yeah.
That's incredible. It can hit absolutely anyone. Keisha, she's whip smart, incredibly fit, not a smoker. You guys get this devastating diagnosis. I mean, what's your reaction? How do you stay positive throughout treatment?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. I mean, how do you stay positive? I think my wife had a lot of football, a lot of sport, a lot of that in her. In that when bad things happen, when we in terms of sport, you can't just sit there. You got to keep moving. You got to move forward. We have modified the game plan and we keep going, and that's exactly what she did. She didn't lose the fact that she would find a way to enjoy each day, but then we just had to modify what the game plan looked like. It says, all right, we're going to attack it. We're not going to look at these big numbers. We're going to focus on each day. So let's listen to the doc. Let's make sure we have all the information that we need to be able to fight it, and not try to fight this. Not try to fight this big thing. Not try to look at these eventuals as much. But really fight for what's happening the next day.
Well, guys, I told you it was a great episode, and Chris, he's so inspirational, doing great stuff with the Chris Draft Family Foundation. Courtland, I can't wait to watch part 2.
I know, it was such a great show. We couldn't get it all into one episode, so we had to split it up into 2, and it's coming up next week.
Yeah, so everybody tune in. Remember, it's Dave and Courtland. We go live every Tuesday at 1 p.m. You can always find the two of us at healthyo360.com, and stay tuned next week for part 2 with Chris Draft.